Hey, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the super sexy subject of staying organised. I'm going to be going through some quick and easy ways to stay organised and save yourself a ton of time when you're preparing for a shoot, when you're actually on a shoot, when you pack up and you've finished your shoot, and then finally how I organise all the stuff that I've shot to keep it all in one place, save myself a ton of time when it comes to the edit. So let's get into it. So as I said, this probably isn't what you expect when you think about a full-time photographer and filmmaker. But over the years, having done this for so long now, these little tips and tricks have saved me hours when it comes to keeping myself organised when I've got multiple shoots. One of the best pieces of gear that I've ever invested in for my business is one of these. This is a Dymo label maker that I bought about 10 years ago, and I have used it literally everywhere. When it comes to staying organised over multiple shoots, on multiple cameras, for multiple disciplines, whether it's photography or film, I find it best to label absolutely every piece of gear that I own. Some might call this overkill. Some people might already be doing this, but you'll be surprised at the amount of shoots that I've been to with other photographers or other filmmakers there, and they just literally don't label anything. How do you even know where anything is? So let's start with the real simple stuff. Currently, I've got 4 cameras. I've got 2 that I set up for photography. So I've labeled them just on the bottom of the camera there saying photo 1, photo 2. And then I've got 2 set up for video, and I label them video 1, video 2. So when I'm getting my cameras out of the drawer that they live in, I can just pick them up, look underneath, and I know which ones are already set up for photos and which ones are already set up for videos. So if I'm only shooting on 2 cameras, I grab the 2 video ones and away I go. I've got about 14 batteries for my cameras as well, because the R6s do like a battery. So these have been purchased over the years from Mark IIs to Mark IIIs to Mark IVs, and they all use the same batteries. Some are super old, some are brand new. So what I did when I first got my batteries, I just put a tiny little label on there and just put the year on there. It just is 18 or 16, so I know with different colours very quickly which ones are the old batteries, which ones are the new ones. So say I'm going off just to go and shoot some portraits for like half an hour, I'll just stick a brand new battery in there. I know I'm not going to need any more. Whereas if I've got an older battery in there, I might need to take a couple with me. I can't tell you the amount of photographers and filmmakers that I've met over the years that just don't label or number their memory cards. It just blows my mind. I can't understand why people don't do it. So on my little label maker, I just label every single card that I've got. I keep them in a little think tank wallet like this. Every single one of them is labelled with either a number or a letter in whatever combination suits. So when I'm checking what's on that memory card to clear it for the next shoot, I can simply look at it, see the footage or the photos that I've got, go to that folder, and then I'll have the corresponding folder with the labelled memory card, and I can just check that, make sure the right amount of files are on there, and then I can clear it, knowing that it's backed up. Another little side tip on my cameras is for file numbering in the menu, I always do it to reset every single time you put a new memory card in. So when you put a formatted memory card in there, when you take your first photo, it starts at number 1. Whatever file name it is, it just starts at number 1 and then carries on, which means that you don't get to 9,999 and then ticks over again and it goes back to 0, 1. So then when you're looking at the folder of images afterwards on your computer, half of them are at the top, which is halfway through the shoot. So always reset it back to 1. And that makes life a lot easier as well. When you're looking at a photos or footage folder on your computer, the last file's 323 and you've got 323 files in there. Easy. Lenses. I don't really need to label my lenses because they're already labelled on there. It tells me exactly what's on the lens. But these little things don't have labels. I just put a little label on there telling me what lens corresponds to what lens cap. 85mm. And you may think that that's just overkill, but when you've been shooting all day and you've been taking lens caps off and throwing them back in your bag because you're on a shoot or an event or a wedding or something like that, and you're working really fast and you haven't got time to keep everything organised, at the end of the day when you've finished a shoot and you're putting your bag back in the boot, you can save yourself time by just throwing all your lens caps on because you know exactly which one corresponds to which one. When it comes to backing up and archiving, as any photographer or filmmaker will tell you, you've got an abundance of these hard drives. So obviously I just label all my hard drives with what's on them or what the corresponding year is or what the shoots are. Whether it's a wedding or it's commercial, job done. If I ever need to retrieve anything, I can just simply go into my wardrobe and pick it out straight away, no problems. Audio. I use these DJI mics all the time. They're lovely and compact. You get 2 recorders in this pack plus a receiver. So the 2 recorders I've just labelled left and right. So when I'm shooting an interview, I know that one's at L, one's at R, and then if they're stopping for a break or we're stopping for lunch, we're taking the recorders off and then we're going back to it, or if it's a multiple day shoot, I know who's got the left one, who's got the right one, and we never get mixed up. These little Sony field recorders are an absolute must-have for weddings. They're just these little clip-on mics that you might see in loads of wedding films that are stuck in people's jackets, etc. I've got 4 of them at the moment. I just simply label them Sony 1, 2, 3, 4. That helps me when I'm on shoots. So say I'm doing 4 lots of speeches at a wedding, I can simply put like 1, 2, 3, 4 for 4 speeches done. I know exactly what order they're going to be in, and I can just take them all off at the end. And then when I'm backing up in the folders, I can just simply put Sony as a folder, then 1, 2, 3, 4. I know exactly what's on there. And then if I need to clear or format those recorders, I can go back to those folders and I know that I'm only looking at one to see what files are on there. So when I've got back from a shoot, be it photography or film, I get straight into backing up all of my footage and images. Simply create a folder for the shoot. If it's footage, I just create a footage folder, then I create a further folder with the card label on there, and then just dump the footage straight in those folders. So if I'm coming back a week later and I need to clear those cards to go to another shoot, I can simply put the card straight in the camera, figure out what shoot it is, and just go straight to that folder, check it, make sure it's the right amount of files that are already backed up on there, job done, format. No problem at all. This just saves time. If all of my cards were exactly the same, I'd just be going through and seeing some are clear, some are not clear, what shoots that. It would just be a nightmare. I do exactly the same for photography. I just create a folder for the shoot, then I'll create a raw folder, label the next folder with whatever card I've used. If I've used multiple cards over multiple cameras, then I'll just create a couple of folders, drop the images straight in there, and then eventually when they're edited and processed, within that shoot, there'll be then a high-res JPEGs folder as well when they're all edited and exported. Another way I keep myself organized is just make sure that I just back up everything as soon as I get back, audio, footage, photos, whatever it is. But then what I'll also do straight away is make sure that once it's all backed up, it then goes onto an off-site hard drive as well. I actually keep a flight case of hard drives that don't live in my office, but I bring them back after I've done a shoot, copy the shoot that I've just backed up onto an off-site hard drive, goes back in the box, and then off it goes away from the office, just in case. Once it's all backed up onto the drive that I'm going to be using, it also automatically backs up onto my time machine. I've got 2 20 terabyte Western Digital drives that just keep a time machine running, and every time something new comes in, it just backs it up automatically. I don't have to think about it or worry about it. I just know that it's there. And then additionally to that, I also have Backblaze as well, which is my online backup, which is super cheap, unlimited amount of storage, and I keep it for 12 months. If I haven't edited a project in 12 months, something's gone wrong. I'll leave links in the description to the hard drives that I use and to Backblaze backup software. Because I shoot video and photos, I have a hard drive for films, I have a hard drive for photos, just to keep things completely separate and organized. So here's a typical example of how I would back up a shoot. This one was a commercial shoot, so I've got the name of the shoot there as a folder, and then I've got everything in there. This one has been worked on, but I've created a footage folder, and then I've got A1, which was the SD card that I used for all that footage, and then D1 was the other SD card that I used for the second camera. And then we had some additional computer footage as well, which has been sent to me and backed up there as well. I used off-camera audio. So with these, I used the DJIs. I used both microphones, and they were being used for the person that was doing the course and for the model that was on the shoot as well. That'll just sit there and get backed up until I'm ready to start editing it. When that goes into Final Cut, I'll then create a project folder where the project in Final Cut will sit. Additionally, when things start getting edited, if I'm using any additional assets, so if I've had to do any Photoshop work or there's any labels or logos or anything, I just create an assets folder within there, so that all sits in the same place. And then any music that I've used for intros, outros, or over the project, then that sits in a music folder there. I'll also have a finished films in there, so as and when I've finished parts of the project, I'll export them and they'll go into a finished films folder. And any reels that are created for social media also go in a reels folder within the finished films. Simple. And I literally do every single project like that, whether it's a wedding or an event or a commercial piece or anything. That just keeps me completely organized. And then I know that every single part of that project, whether it's the music or the assets or the audio or the raw footage, it's all in one place. And then when it's all finished and client's happy, I just plug in an archive hard drive. I simply copy that entire project, and then I know if ever I need to recall it for any reason, I can just go straight into it and I've got every single thing there that I need. I keep things really similar when it comes to photography, but with a couple of slight differences just because of workflow. So I've got, at the very start, I've got images, and then I've got LR cats, which are my Lightroom catalogs, separate to the images, and I'll explain why in a second. So I've got images, say commercial 2025, portraits that I've shot. This is a portrait shoot that I did. I've got the folder where all the raw images sit, and then I've actually completed this now. It was only a few images, portraits, So I've got the high-res JPEGs, which are the ones that I exported within Lightroom. When I'm picking the images that I want to use, I actually create a subfolder for picked. So I know that these are all the images that I used, and those are all the finished JPEGs of the images that I used. So what's left in the raw folder are just all the images that I haven't used. So just to explain why I keep my Lightroom catalog separate, I actually set up a catalog per shoot. There's an age-old debate as to whether you should have one catalog for everything, or one catalog per year, or have a catalog for every single shoot. I've always just made a catalog for every single shoot that I've had. It probably takes a little bit longer because I have to load a catalog every single time I want to swap shoots. But for me, it's just less risky. If ever I had a corrupt catalog, it would mean that I only had a corrupt catalog for one shoot and not a corrupt catalog for my entire year's worth of work. So going back into the computer, I just call it LR Cats, and then corresponding to the images that I'm shooting, I've got commercial there, and then that's the catalog for the portrait shoot that I've got. And it's still on the same hard drive, it's just in a slightly separate place. So if I wanted to fire up that catalog for the portraits, again, there it is. So slightly differently there, when I'm archiving, I can't just simply drag the entire thing there and know it's all there. I've got to drag all the raw images with the completed JPEGs and the Lightroom catalogs in there. But it all still sits in the same folder, so they're just right next to each other, exactly the same as they are on this drive. So that's it. I hope those tips have been useful, and hopefully you've picked up something that you might not already do that might save you a little bit of time in the future. If you have found this video useful, please consider subscribing to get all future videos. I'm still quite new to this, but I have created a playlist down in the description of all the videos that I've done so far. They include how to make your own light leaks for your video projects, 5 tips on how to edit faster in Final Cut Pro, and another one on the disciplines of wedding photography and how tough it actually is. Anyway, until the next one, look after yourselves. Take care, bye.